In the deep silence of space, a small diary floated between broken rocks and dust. It was old, its pages soft and faded, yet words were still clear, written in the shaky hand of a child. The first line read, "I am alone. I am waiting for someone. But no one comes." The diary belonged to a young alien girl. Her world once full of light and laughter, but now turned into ruins after a great war. She was left behind when her people escaped the planet. Perhaps by mistake, perhaps by choice. Her days were filled with hunger, fear, and the heavy silence of empty streets. Her nights were worse, when the cold winds howled through the broken buildings, carrying echoes of the past. Every night she pressed the diary to her chest, writing by the faint glow of a cracked crystal lamp. Her words were simple, yet full of pain. "I do not want to disappear. I want someone to hear me." The girl wrote about the way she searched for food among the ruins, the way she hid when strange machines moved in the distance. She described her dreams of stars, of voices, of a kind face that might one day arrive. But every time she woke, there was only silence again. Her body grew thin, her eyes hollow, yet she kept writing. Because the diary was her only friend. Each page held her fear, her hope, her story. The ruins of her city whispered like ghosts, broken towers leaning toward the sky, the air heavy with poison and ash. Sometimes she heard distant thunder beneath the ground, as if the planet itself was still alive and angry. But still, she wrote, still she waited far away. Human explorers picked up a strange signal. It was weak, broken, but repeating like a heartbeat at first. They thought it was a trap left from the war, a hidden danger waiting for the careless. Yet one human soldier turned explorer listened closer. He thought he heard something different inside the signal. Something almost like a child's cry. Meanwhile, the alien girl sat in the shell of her old home, her small hands trembling as she turned the diary's pages. Her last entry of the day read, "I saw lights in the sky tonight, maybe ships, maybe stars. I don't know, but please, if anyone reads this, do not leave me alone." She curled herself into a corner, hugging the diary tight, her only shield against the dark, her eyes closed with tears on her cheeks. And above her, hidden behind clouds of ash, a human ship slowly lowered into the ruined city. The engines hummed low, dust rising, as the first outsider in years set foot on her dying world. But the girl did not know yet. She only dreamed of voices, footsteps, and someone calling her name. The diary rested near her heart, waiting to record the next chapter of her life. The silence of the city was about to change forever, and the lonely child's wish was about to be answered, though in a way that would shake not only her world but the laws of the galaxy itself. The night sky of the ruined world glowed faintly as a ship cut through the thick clouds. Its engines hummed with a low growl, shaking the broken towers as dust and ash fell like snow. For the first time in many years, the silence of the dead city was broken, and the lonely alien child, curled in her corner, stirred in her sleep. Her diary still pressed against her chest. The human ship landed with care, its hull scratched and old from many battles. It belonged to Captain Elias, a soldier who had once fought in the same great war that destroyed this world. He had seen too much death, too many broken places. His heart was tired, but his duty was to search for survivors, to answer faint signals that might still carry hope. When the ship's ramp opened, Elias stepped onto the cracked stone of the alien city. The air smelled sharp and bitter, but his suit filtered it. His boots crunched against glass and bone. Echoes running down the long empty streets, he whispered to himself. "This place is a graveyard." The scanners beeped faintly, showing small energy traces. Most were weak, scattered in the ruins, but one signal pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. It drew him deeper into the city, past towers leaning like tired giants, past statues half broken, their faces lost. Somewhere in those ruins he felt someone was waiting. The alien child woke to the sound of his steps. She froze, eyes wide, clutching her diary tighter. Voices of fear rushed through her mind. Her people had warned her long ago that humans were dangerous, that they burned worlds and broke laws. She did not know if those stories were true, but she knew she could not be seen. Quiet as a shadow, she hid behind broken stones, watching the tall figure move through the ruins. Elias stopped near the remains of an old home. He bent down, touching the ground where small footprints marked the dust. His eyes narrowed. Not machines, not animals. Someone small, he whispered. His heart beat faster, not with fear, but with something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. The girl's breath shook as she peered from the shadows. The man was tall, his armor old, His face lined with scars, yet his eyes did not look cruel. They looked tired, lonely, almost like hers. She wanted to believe he was different, but her hands trembled and she hugged her diary tighter. As if it could shield her from him, Elias turned suddenly. Certain he was being watched. "Hello?" he called softly, his voice echoing. The sound carried through the hollow buildings. Reaching the girl's ears, her heart pounded. She had not heard a gentle voice in years. Her mind screamed to run, but her legs stayed still. He stepped closer, slow and careful, as if he knew a frightened creature was near. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice calm. The girl pressed her face into her diary, whispering in her own language. Words of fear and prayer Elias could not understand. But the sound told him enough. It was a child. Alone he lowered his weapon, removing his helmet to show his face. His hair was gray at the edges. His eyes deep with sorrow, he crouched, setting his scanner aside. Showing his empty hands. "Whoever you are, I came because I heard you," he said. His voice carried no threat, only weary kindness. The girl peeked through her fingers, her large eyes meeting his for the first time. For a moment, time stopped. Two broken lives, one human, one alien, staring at each other in the ruins of a dead world. Her diary slipped from her grip, falling to the floor with a soft sound Elias noticed, and gently reached toward it but stopped.
He did not want to frighten her instead.
He pushed it back toward her with one finger. "You keep it," he whispered. "It belongs to you." The girl blinked, confused. Her people had always taught her that humans took what they wanted. But this man gave something back. A small seed of trust began to grow inside her. She opened the diary, trembling, and wrote a single word in her language. Elias tilted his head, trying to understand. The word meant friend, though she did not know if that was true yet. Still, it was her test, her way of seeing what he would do. He smiled faintly, the first smile he had shown in years. "I don't know what it says, but if it means you want me to stay, I will," he whispered. The girl's eyes softened, and though she said nothing, she did not run. She stayed hidden in the shadow, but her diary now held a new line. "Today someone came. I don't know if he is safe." But his eyes are not cruel. Elias stood. Looking around the ruins, he knew danger was near. Machines could still be awake. Storms could still rise. But for now, he felt a new mission. Not just to explore, not just to survive, but to protect the small life hiding in the dark. And as the stars moved slowly above the ruined world, the first fragile bond between human and alien child began to form. The ruined city slept under a blanket of ash, but inside one broken home, two lives now shared the same silence. The alien child sat in the corner, her diary clutched tightly in her hands, while the human explorer, Captain Elias, stood a few steps away, careful not to move too fast. The air between them was heavy with fear and uncertainty, like a thin glass wall ready to crack. Elias spoke softly, his voice low and calm. "I will not hurt you," he said, but the words meant little to her ears. The child did not understand his language. She only saw his lips move, his tone gentle, and she wondered if those sounds were safe or dangerous. Her people had once told her humans were cruel, that they destroyed what they touched, but this man had not raised his weapon. He had not shouted. Instead, he waited, patient as stone. The girl opened her diary slowly, her hands shaking, and wrote something small on the page. She pushed the book forward, letting him see from a distance. The marks on the paper were strange to him. The alien language twisted and curved like flowing rivers. Elias tilted his head, trying to guess, but he could not read the meaning still. The way she looked at him when she wrote told him one thing. She wanted to speak. Even if she had no voice in his world, he pointed at his chest. "Elias," he said slowly, clearly. Then he pointed at her, waiting. The girl's lips trembled. She had not spoken aloud in years, her throat dry and weak. But with effort, she whispered one broken sound, a piece of her name. "Lyra." It was soft, almost a breath, but Elias smiled, repeating it. "Lyra." Her eyes widened, surprise in her face. No one had said her name since her family vanished. For the first time, the wall of fear cracked a little. Yet trust is not born in a moment. It grows like a fragile seed. When Elias stepped closer, she flinched, pressing her back against the wall. Her diary hugged tight against her chest. Her heart screamed danger, but another part whispered stay. Elias stopped, raising his hands to show they were empty, then slowly sat on the ground, lowering himself until he was no taller than her. "I'll stay here," he said softly, though she could not understand. The calm in his voice was a language all its own. The night outside was restless, winds howling through hollow towers, carrying distant echoes of machines that stirred beneath the ruins. Lyra glanced at the shadows. Fear flickering in her wide eyes, Elias noticed, his hand moving toward his weapon by instinct, but he did not raise it. He knew sudden movements would scare her more. Instead, he shifted so that he sat between her and the broken doorway, his body a quiet shield. She watched, confused, as the stranger placed himself in the path of danger without asking for anything. Hours passed slowly, the silence broken only by the sound of her scratching pen against paper. She wrote another line in her diary, then turned it so he could see. This time she drew a small picture, a figure of a girl sitting alone and another taller figure standing nearby. Elias studied it carefully and then nodded, pressing his hand against his heart as if to promise he understood. Lyra blinked in surprise, and for the first time, someone had understood her without knowing her words. The fear in her chest loosened just a little more, but fear is stubborn. When Elias reached into his pack to take out food, she gasped, retreating back into the corner. He stopped instantly, raising the small packet high where she could see it, showing her the simple bread inside. Slowly he placed it on the ground, pushing it toward her with the tip of his boot, then moved his hands back. Lyra stared at it, hunger burning in her stomach but doubt clouding her eyes. Her people had once whispered, "Never take food from the enemy." Yet she could not remember the last time she had eaten more than scraps. Finally, trembling, she stretched her thin fingers forward. Pulling the bread close, she nibbled it carefully. As if it might vanish, the taste was plain, but to her it felt like life. Elias did not smile or speak. He only watched her with quiet relief. He knew a bond had begun. Not trust yet, but something close. Lyra wiped her eyes, ashamed of her weakness. But inside her chest, the diary of her heart wrote its own hidden line. Today, for the first time, I was not invisible. The night dragged on, but Elias stayed awake, his eyes scanning the ruins outside. Lyra dozed for a while, clutching her diary as if it were both shield and pillow. When she woke again, she saw him still there, sitting steady, guarding. Her fear had not vanished, but she understood one truth: he had not left. That small fact in her lonely world meant everything. Yet as dawn's weak light touched the broken city, danger stirred. Elias's scanner beeped faintly. Picking up signals from moving machines, Lyra saw the glow in his eyes turn sharp. Ready? She gripped her diary tighter, her young heart torn between terror and a new strange hope. She did not know if she could fully trust this human, but she knew one thing: she could not face the coming shadows alone, and so fear and trust danced in her heart. Two voices whispering, one warning her to hide, the other urging her to stay close. In that moment, the diary of a sad alien child gained its first page of courage, and the fragile bond between her and Elias began to harden into something stronger, something unspoken. The silence of her world was breaking, and with it, so was the wall around her heart. The ruins of the alien city woke slowly under the pale light of dawn. Shadows stretched across broken walls, and the air carried the low hum of machines hidden deep underground. Captain Elias stood at the doorway of the ruined home, his weapon ready, his eyes scanning the horizon. Behind him, Lyra clutched her diary, her small hands shaking as the beeping sound of the scanner grew louder. She had always feared the night, but now she realized the day was no safer. Her people's machines, built long ago for war, never fully slept. Somewhere in the ashes, their metal hearts still beat, waiting for movement, waiting for life. Lyra's wide eyes darted to every shadow, her chest tight, her voice trapped in silence. Elias whispered softly, though she could not understand his words. "Stay behind me," he said, his tone firm but calm. Even if the language meant nothing to her, the strength in his voice was clear. He stepped forward, his boots crunching against glass and stone, every sound echoing like a warning bell. From the corner of her ruined home, Lyra scribbled quickly in her diary, drawing the shape of tall metal creatures with glowing eyes. She held it up for him to see, her heart racing. Elias glanced at the drawing, his jaw tightening. He understood enough. Danger was coming, and it was not small. The ground trembled faintly, dust falling from broken ceilings. A low metallic screech echoed through the city streets. Growing closer, Lyra covered her ears, her thin body shaking with memory. She had heard that sound before when her people still fought. Machines without pity, built to destroy, still walking the earth even though the war was long over. Elias moved quickly, guiding her deeper into the ruins. His hand steady on her shoulder, she stumbled but followed, her fear heavy yet softened by his presence. They reached a broken plaza, once a gathering place, now filled with cracked statues and shattered stone. From the far side, shadows moved, tall figures with glowing red eyes stepping into the light. The war machines had found them, metal limbs scraped against stone, weapons unfolding like claws. Their voices were cold and empty, repeating old commands of war in a dead language. Lyra gasped, her diary falling from her hands. Pages scattering in the wind, she reached for it desperately, but Elias pulled her back, his eyes fixed on the machines. "Stay down," he said sharply, raising his weapon. The first machine opened fire, bright bolts tearing into stone, sparks flying across the plaza. Elias ducked low, returning fire with quick, sharp shots, his weapon humming with deadly power. The machine staggered but did not fall, their armor thick, their eyes glowing brighter with rage. Lyra crouched behind broken stone, covering her head, tears streaming down her face. But through her fear, she looked up and saw Elias, moving fast, shielding her, firing, shouting. Every action told her something her heart had long forgotten. He was fighting for her, not against her. One machine charged. Its heavy steps shaking the ground, Elias rolled aside, blasting at its leg joints until sparks burst and metal cracked. The creature stumbled, falling with a crash that shook the plaza. Another stepped forward, aiming at Lyra, but Elias threw himself in front, the blast striking his armor with a burst of light. He grunted, pain flashing across his face, but he did not fall. He stood firm, protecting the child behind him. Lyra's heart pounded, her diary pages fluttering in the dust around her. She grabbed one page and scribbled a single word in her language, hope, then held it high, as if the act itself could protect him. Elias saw her, even in the chaos, and the corner of his mouth tightened into a faint smile. It gave him strength, and with a roar he fired again, blasting the last machine until its glowing eyes dimmed to black. Silence returned, broken only by the hiss of smoke and the echo of Elias's heavy breathing. He lowered his weapon, his shoulders rising and falling, sweat dripping from his brow. Lyra crawled forward, gathering her scattered pages, clutching the diary to her chest like a lifeline. Her eyes met his, wide with awe, confusion, and something new in trust. Elias knelt, placing a hand on her shoulder, his voice soft again. "You're safe now." She did not know the words, but she knew the feeling. She opened her diary and wrote quickly, then turned the page toward him. Her alien letters curved like rivers, but this time she also drew a picture. It showed a tall figure standing before her, a shield against monsters. Elias looked at it, and his eyes softened. For years, Lyra had written only of sadness and loneliness. Now, for the first time, her diary carried a new story, not of fear, but of protection. The hidden danger of the city was real, but so was the strange bond between human and alien child. The machines might rise again, the shadows might follow them, but Lyra no longer faced the darkness alone. Above the broken plaza, the sky rumbled with distant thunder. Elias looked up, his face tightening. The danger was far from over. He knew something greater was moving beneath the planet's surface, something the machines only served. And as Lyra hugged her diary close, she sensed it too. The hidden danger was only beginning to awaken. The smoke from the broken machines still hung in the air. Elias leaned against the wall, catching his breath while Lyra sat close by, her diary pressed to her chest. The silence of the ruined plaza felt heavier now, as if the city itself had paused to watch them. But Lyra's breathing was not steady. Her small chest rose and fell too fast, her lips pale, her eyes half closed. Elias knelt beside her, worry deep in his scarred face. He touched his scanner to her body, and the screen glowed red. Her lungs were weak, poisoned by years of breathing the toxic air. Every breath was a battle she was slowly losing. Lyra looked up at him with tired eyes, as if already accepting what her life had always promised, to end alone in the ruins. She opened her diary and wrote a shaky line. "I am happy I was not alone today." The words cut Elias deeper than any wound. He had seen soldiers die, he had seen worlds burn, but the sight of this fragile child fading in front of him filled him with a new kind of pain. He could not let her story end here. Elias's hands tightened into fists, his soldier's mind racing. There had to be a way. His ship carried human medical tech, strong but built only for human bodies. Her lungs were alien, her blood different, her body fragile. No machine in the galaxy was made to heal her kind, but Elias was not the kind of man who followed rules when lives were at stake. He looked at the wreckage of the machines scattered across the plaza. Strange wires, glowing crystals, alien metals. An idea began to form in his mind, dangerous. Desperate but possible, he could build something new. Something forbidden, artificial lungs. Made from human and alien parts, a gift of hope for a dying child. The night that followed was filled with sparks and firelight. Elias worked in the ruins with his tools spread across broken stone. He cut into the remains of war machines, salvaging power cells and crystal cores. He mixed them with human circuits from his ship, welding them together with shaky hands. Every sound echoed through the dead city, but he did not stop. Lyra sat nearby, her eyes half closed, writing small words in her diary between weak breaths. She wrote of his hands moving fast, his face lit by blue sparks. The way he cursed under his breath when things broke. She did not understand his words, but she understood his fight. He was fighting for her. At one point, Elias paused, staring at the mess of wires and steel in front of him, his chest heavy with doubt. What if he failed? What if the machine killed her instead of saving her? He closed his eyes, hearing the voices of the Galactic Council in his memory. Their laws were clear. No human could interfere with alien biology. No matter the reason, to do so was to break the oldest law of the stars. But when he opened his eyes again, he saw Lyra watching him, her diary shaking in her hands as she wrote, "I do not want to die." And that was enough. He worked harder, his fingers burning from heat, his back aching but his resolve unbroken. The first shape of the device began to form. Small, fragile, glowing with a faint light. He tested it and it hummed softly like a heartbeat. Lyra's eyes widened at the sound, her thin fingers reaching out to touch the glowing shell. It was warm, alive in its own way. Her diary wrote its next line with trembling letters. "It sounds like me." Elias knew the hardest part was still ahead, to connect the machine to her body, to replace what nature had broken. His hands shook as he prepared. His soldier's courage tested in a new way. He had faced enemies with guns, monsters of metal and fire, but never this. Never the task of holding a fragile child's life between his hands. "Trust me," he whispered, though she could not understand. But Lyra looked at him with tired eyes and nodded. For the first time, she placed her diary aside, leaving her story unfinished for a moment. She was giving him her trust, the most precious gift she had. The night bled into morning as Elias worked. Sparks flew, wires connected, breaths held. Lyra's body trembled under the strain, her face pale. Elias fought against fear, against time, against the weight of the galaxy's laws pressing on his shoulders. Finally, with one last connection, the machine clicked into place. The light inside it pulsed strong, steady, alive for a moment, silence. Then Lyra gasped, her chest rising with new strength, her lungs filled not with poison, but with clean air filtered through the strange machine. Color returned to her cheeks, her eyes opening wide in shock then wonder. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling life rush back into her veins. Her diary trembled as she wrote her next words. "I can breathe again." Elias sat back, sweat dripping from his face, his hands shaking with exhaustion. He had broken the oldest law of the galaxy. But when he saw Lyra smile weakly, clutching her diary to her chest, he knew he would break it again for her, for hope, for the chance to prove that kindness was greater than law. Above them, the sky rumbled with distant thunder. The machines were not their only enemy. The Galactic Council watched the stars, and sooner or later, they would learn what he had done. But for now, in the ruins of a dead world, one sad alien child breathed again. Her diary, once filled only with sorrow, now carried a new line of hope. And Elias, the weary human soldier, had given her that gift. Even if the galaxy would never forgive him, the ruined city was quiet, yet the air carried a heavy weight. Lyra sat on a broken step, her diary open across her knees. Each breath stronger now because of the strange machine inside her chest. She touched the small glow under her skin, still amazed that life had returned. Her diary filled with new words. "I can breathe, I can live." Because of him, Elias watched from the doorway, his weapon resting by his side. He should have felt relief, but instead unease burned in his mind. He knew what he had done was more than dangerous, it was forbidden. The Galactic Council had written laws across the stars, and one law stood above all. No human could alter alien life. To break it was to challenge the order of the galaxy itself. As the morning sun broke through the ash clouds, his scanner beeped sharply. He frowned, looking at the screen. Several large signals were moving in orbit above the planet. Ships too smooth, too perfect to be survivors. His stomach turned cold. The council had come. Lyra noticed the shadow on his face and wrote quickly, "More machines?" Elias shook his head, then pointed upward to the sky. Her eyes widened, fear spilling across her small features. She had heard of the council only in whispers. They were not protectors. They were judges. To them, mercy was weakness, and law was the only truth. The sky split open with beams of white light as great ships descended. They were vast, their hulls shining like blades, their engines humming with power older than her people's ruins. Lyra clutched her diary, her hands trembling. Elias stepped in front of her, his eyes hard, his body tense like a wall of iron. The ships landed outside the city, their ramps lowering in silence. From them walked figures tall and cloaked, their faces hidden behind masks of glass and light. They moved with slow steps, as if the ground itself bowed beneath them. Their leader raised a hand, his voice cold and echoing. "Human, you have broken the law." Elias stood firm. Though his heart pounded, "I saved her," he replied, his voice steady. The leader tilted his head, the mask glowing faintly. "Salvation is not your right. This child was meant to fade with her world. You have changed her destiny, and by doing so, you have endangered balance." Lyra could not understand their language, but she saw the way they pointed at her. She opened her diary, scribbling fast. "They want to take me." Her breath caught, panic rising again. Elias placed his hand gently on her shoulder, his eyes never leaving the council. "You will not take her," he said firmly. The cloaked figures stepped closer, their presence heavy like a storm. "You know the punishment," the leader said. "Exile at best, death at worst. No human may alter alien life." Elias's jaw clenched, his hand tightening on his weapon. For years he had fought wars for orders, killed for rules, but this time he knew he could not obey. He looked at Lyra, fragile but alive, her diary pages glowing with hope. For her he would defy the galaxy itself. Lyra wrote another line with tears staining the page. "I have found a father, and they will take him away." She pushed the diary toward him, her eyes pleading. Elias's throat tightened. He had not asked for this bond, but it had grown stronger than anything he had known. A soldier's loyalty was once to his commanders, but now it was to a child who had no one else. The council raised their hands, energy pulsing around them like lightning. "This is your final warning, human. Surrender the child." Elias lifted his weapon slowly, aiming at the ground. His voice cut through the air like steel. "No." The silence after that word was deafening. Lyra's heart raced, her eyes wide. She had never seen anyone stand against the council, never thought anyone could. Her diary filled with shaking letters. "He chooses me over them." The air shimmered as drones emerged from the council ships, sleek machines with glowing eyes and sharp weapons. They hovered above the plaza, ready to strike. Elias shifted his stance, placing himself directly in front of Lyra. He knew he could not win against an entire fleet, but he also knew he would not step aside. If this was his last battle, it would be for her. The leader spoke again, calm but sharp as a blade. "Then you are no longer a soldier of humanity. You are an enemy of the law." Elias almost laughed, though bitterness filled his chest. "I stopped being a soldier a long time ago," he said. "Now I am just a man protecting a child." Lyra clutched her diary tightly, her tears falling onto the page. She wrote her words as fast as she could. "If they take him, I'm alone again, please. Do not let them." Her small voice, silent in the air, roared inside Elias's heart louder than any order he had ever heard. The standoff stretched as the wind howled through the ruins. The council waited, the drones buzzed, and Elias stood unbroken. Lyra pressed herself against his back, trembling but no longer hiding. For the first time, she believed her diary's next line, "I am not invisible. I am worth fighting for." Above them, thunder rolled across the poisoned sky. The judgment of the galaxy had arrived, but Elias and Lyra were no longer just a soldier and a child. They were something greater, something the council could not measure. A bond born not of law but of love, and with that bond, they would face whatever came next. The plaza stood silent, the air trembling with the hum of council drones. Elias stood tall, his weapon ready, his body a shield for the fragile child behind him. Lyra clutched her diary, her small hand shaking as she wrote her desperate words. "Do not leave me, please." The pages of her diary were stained with tears, each letter trembling, each line a prayer. The cloaked leader of the council lifted a hand. "Human, step aside," the voice echoed. Cold as stone. "Your defiance cannot change the law. The child does not belong to you, she belongs to fate." Elias's jaw tightened, his scarred face lit by the pale glow of the drones. "I don't care about your law," he said, his voice steady. "She belongs to herself, and right now, she needs me." The council's drones moved closer. Their weapons glowing, Lyra hid behind him, her breathing fast, her new lungs whirring softly with each frightened gasp. She had never been more afraid, yet she had never felt stronger. Her diary pressed against her heart. She whispered one word in her language, broken but clear, "Father." Elias froze, the word sinking into him deeper than any wound. For years he had carried only the title of soldier, but in that moment he became something else. The leader raised his voice. "You stand against the will of the galaxy. You will die here." Elias lifted his weapon slowly, his voice calm but unshakable. "Then I will die protecting her." The first drone fired, a bolt of white light tearing through the air. Elias moved fast, shielding Lyra as the blast struck his armor. Sparks bursting, pain burning through his side. He grunted but did not fall. He fired back, striking the drone and sending it crashing into the plaza. The others swarmed forward, their lights flashing. The battle was chaos. Energy bolts ripped through stone, fire lit the ruins. Shadows danced across broken statues. Elias fought with the fury of a man who had nothing left to lose. His body bled, his arms shook, but he stood unbroken. Lyra crouched low, clutching her diary and writing as fast as she could, her words frantic. "He is fighting for me. He will not stop. He will not leave." One drone slipped past, aiming directly at her. Her eyes widened, but before it could strike, Elias threw himself in front, his weapon firing point blank. The machine shattered in a burst of sparks, but the blast tore across his chest. He fell to one knee, his breath ragged. Blood staining the dust, Lyra screamed without sound, her diary falling open on the ground, its pages fluttering in the hot wind. The council leader stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You see, child, this is the price of defiance. He cannot save you." But Lyra's eyes blazed with something new. She picked up her diary, the one thing that had carried her loneliness for so long, and she raised it high. Her small voice broke free, weak but filled with fire. "He already saved me," she cried in her own tongue. Her first true words in years. The air trembled. Even the drones seemed to pause. Elias looked up, his face pale but his eyes alive with pride. He had given her more than lungs, more than life. He had given her voice. With his last strength, he rose again, firing at the drones, breaking the silence with thunder. Every shot was a promise, every step forward a vow. The council's leader raised his hand, ready to unleash final judgment. But then he stopped, for in that moment, the galaxy itself seemed to shift. A human soldier and an alien child, standing together, breaking the oldest law, and yet instead of chaos there was something different in the air, something the council could not name. Hope. Elias staggered, his body failing. But he reached out and touched Lyra's shoulder. "Write this down," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. Lyra grabbed her diary with shaking hands, her tears falling onto the page. His eyes locked on hers, steady even in pain. "Write that you are not alone anymore," he said. The light of the drones dimmed. The council's voices fell silent. Even they could not deny what they had seen. Not power, not rebellion, but the simple truth that law could not erase. The bond between two lives who refused to be broken. Lyra's final entry for that day was written in shaky letters. "He gave me hope, he gave me a father, and even if the galaxy turns against us, I will never be alone again." She closed the diary with trembling fingers, pressing it to her chest as Elias leaned against her side. His breath weak but still present, the council watched. Their masks hiding their thoughts, their silence louder than thunder. The war machines lay broken, the plaza burned. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, but inside that ruined city, something greater than law had been born. The story of a sad alien child had found its turning point. No longer just sorrow, no longer just silence. Her diary now carried the proof of love, sacrifice and defiance, and with it, the galaxy would never be the same. The last diary entry did not end with despair. It ended with hope. Hope written in small, Fragile letters by the hand of a child who was no longer invisible. Hope given by a human who had stood against the stars themselves. The galaxy had its laws, but now it also had her story. The diary of a sad alien child. And the human who gave her hope.